Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Women's Workshop. I'm Ella Samuel, founder of the Women's Workshop, and this is my co-host Imi, for those of you who don't know.
Hi, I'm Imi Midi. I'm an electronic musician and composer, and I've been helping Ella out with the project.
So a few housekeeping bits just to keep you up to date on everything that's going on in the Women's Workshop. For those of you who don't know what the Women's Workshop is, we're an online community dedicated to supporting female artists. So at the moment, we've got a great competition going on our Instagram, which is at the women's_workshop. The competition is an ugly art competition. We've currently had about 6 entries, I think, and it's co-hosted by Quirky Buns. So that's Quirky, Quirkybus. It's been a long day. I almost didn't know how to spell that. And she's giving away an amazing pair of earrings to the winner. So please do get involved if you want to. And if you don't know what ugly art is, we have a highlight on our Instagram. So just go check it out.
Yeah, the competition, so far, all of the entries have been absolutely disgusting and I've loved all of them.
Oh, I just don't know how we're going to be able to pick because we have quite a few mediums as well, which I'm quite excited about because we've had a lot of illustrators, which is great because I love illustrators, but we've had like sculpture entries, collage entries, painting entries. I hope a few more people enter as well because it's just so exciting looking at what people come up with because it's very much up to interpretation as well.
Yeah, I really want to see like some ugly poetry. That'd be really fun.
Oh yeah, to be fair, we should probably make that clearer. If you are a poet and you want to do some ugly poetry, that can also be, like that is art. So feel free to enter with that. Also, our upcoming podcast next week is going to be with Jackie, known as Soy Mistake. So that's SOYMISTAKE. She's an amazing illustrator on Instagram, and we're going to be chatting with her next week. So we've got that to look forward to. But tonight we will be interviewing Sasha Smith, who's known as Mystic Illustrations on Instagram, and just talking to her about her work and her illustrations. So are there any other housekeeping bits we need to get on with?
Yeah. Just quickly say, if you do want to get onto the podcast and talk about yourself and your art and answer a big question that needs to be talked about in the arts world, you can DM the Women's Workshop Instagram, or you can DM me at ImiMidi on Instagram, and we'll figure something out. And also, the website is being built. It will be finished on the 7th of April, so put that in your diaries and get ready to come onto the website and see how gorgeous it actually is going to be.
And we're also going to be opening up to people who want to write blogs or write content for it. Feel free to contact us. We really want it to be like a collaborative community project. Like, we couldn't do this without you. So we hope you look forward to that. And I think we should dive into the interview with Sasha. Hi Sasha, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm so excited to get into it and have a lovely chat with you both.
So, first things first, how are you doing? How have you been coping during lockdown?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. It's taken a lot of adapting, definitely. Especially with my own productivity. That's something that I really struggled with at the start. And it fits into the subject that we're going to go into, but pressure and around that pressure internally and externally, being able to manage that balance and kind of understand that, obviously it would be great if we could do a million different things right now, but that is virtually impossible because we've got real life and our interests. So yeah, that's definitely been one thing I've struggled with. But yeah, I'm definitely getting there and ready to hopefully come out on the other side.
Oh, good. Well, we're so glad to have you here. Thank you for coming on again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so excited.
It's going to be a great time for all of us, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
So our first question is to tell us a little bit about you and how you became interested in illustration and art in general.
Well, I'm based in Brighton currently, but I'm from the Isle of Wight, tiny little island at the bottom of the UK.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really sheltered place. I'm sad I moved off there, to be very honest. But yeah, as soon as I never really knew what I wanted to do, it was something that I really struggled with. Like in the first year of living in Brighton, I lived with people who were at university, so they were really aware of what they wanted to do and how they wanted to get there. Whereas like I'd only really worked in my teens and I hadn't like had any A levels or anything like that, so I didn't really know what my interests were or what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go. So as soon as like I moved to Brighton and saw the creativity everywhere and like meeting new people, I finally found that my main goal was that I wanted to do something that I loved. Like I never wanted to get like 10 years down the line and be miserable in my job. That was just like the one goal that I knew that I wanted to hopefully like fulfill in the future. So I basically like I got to a point where I wrote a list and I was like, these are the things that I enjoy doing and that I like, and it was something like singing, like hand lettering, baking, and then one of them, well, there wasn't even an illustration on there, it was hand lettering that initially got me into it. And then yeah, one day like I drew some Disney characters, and then from then I just never stopped drawing.
Oh, wow. That's so lovely. What is the Brighton art scene like? I've heard it's amazing down there.
It's lovely. Like we have like a fringe festival here, like every year.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, like in Edinburgh, so that's really good. And also what they'll do like at the same time as Fringe is they'll do like a open house festival. So basically what that is like literal people's houses in Brighton. If there's like an artist that lives there, they will open up their house and you can literally like walk into their home and they'll do an exhibition in their home. Like I remember one time I walked like up these stairs and I walked into like a garage kind of place, and you walk up these stairs and they literally had their washing like hung like in their backyard, and you had to like walk through the washing. And then it was just like this guy was there and he was like a fashion designer, and all of his like fashion illustrations were on the walls, and it was just like it was such an amazing experience, like being in someone's home in their creative space. Like it was something that I'd never experienced before. So yeah, it's incredible. It's lovely.
It's really interesting you should mention that, because last time I was in Brighton, I didn't even realize it was somebody's house. I just thought it was a really, really weird theatre. Like just a really homey theatre, and I saw it like a full-on, I think they were doing Chicago. I saw the full Chicago musical, but all done by drag kings and drag queens. And I was so confused by the setting. But now you've said that, it turns out it must have been somebody's house.
Yeah, exactly.
When I went to a music festival in Iceland, like their music festivals aren't like out in the middle of a field. They just have it pop up like all over Reykjavik. And I went to see a band like in a winter sports shop. They just have like shops, like random little like cafes, sports shops, and like just bands would pop up there. And one year they actually had them play in a shipping container like down by the docks.
That's so cool. See, stuff like that I love. Like not the normal setting. We want something out, like something weird and wonderful. That's what I love.
And I think it's a bit more like casual and more approachable as well, because like I do love going to galleries, but I think there can be like sort of pretentiousness and it can feel quite cold in a gallery, you know, whereas like if you go into like someone's home or like a little studio or somewhere quite intimate, I feel like you can almost like connect with the art a bit better. How would you describe your artistic style, like in your illustrations?
I think it's changed a lot recently. Like this is like something that I definitely want to speak about. And like I started off when I started my Instagram and like it would be like I would just draw my days. That's how I started off. Like I would draw like what I ate and what I did and what I drank, just like little things like that. And then I really got into the like process of just drawing portraits, and it would just be of like white pretty skinny woman. And like the more I done that, the more I kind of fell out of love with it. And I don't think it really like it doesn't represent me either, or like my beliefs or my interests. So yeah, I really had a turning point recently where I started to understand that I want to speak about a lot more important things. I want to illustrate things and experience that I have been through and talk about things that are currently being spoke about and need to be amplified. So yeah, it's difficult to like really pin it down to like one thing, but I think I like to uplift people. I like to make people smile. I'm quite a positive person and like upbeat, so I like to put that into my art, and it also to be like quite soft as well and approachable. So
Oh no, I very much get that from your work. Like every time I see you post something, I'm like, oh, it just brings me so much happiness. They're just very like fluffy, happy, like I don't know, they just like transport you to like a place of peace.
Yeah, it's very.
That's amazing.
It's very kawaii aesthetic.
Yes, I am definitely kawaii.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I'm sorry.
It's Japanese for cute, Ella.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's amazing that you picked that up because I am massively inspired by a lot of Japanese like artists and like woodcuts as well, like Hiroshige. I don't know if you've heard of him, but like he was amazing. So yeah, I'm definitely massively inspired by like Japanese culture.
So I was looking at some of your pieces and they remind me of, I'm going to butcher her name now, Karu Pampayu. He's a J-pop star who is just the most sugary sweet music ever.
Okay, I'm gonna have to try and listen to that. That sounds amazing.
I'll send you a link.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So I'm backtracking a bit here, but I was just going to go back to what you were saying about how you used to draw things, sort of like everyday things. I absolutely love that because I listen to that a lot in music as well. Like, you know, songs that are just like sort of edgy art girl music, I call it, where they're like, they'll just be like, I went to the store and like I bought a donut and it was great. I don't know, it's just something like really like relatable and chilled out about it. Like,
yeah, that's literally what I used to draw, and it was so much fun. And like this is what like I've said that I wanted to speak about like the pressures of Instagram, but I do think that's what kind of like at one point like derailed me from my like authentic style, my authentic self. Like I became like to follow my influences when then I suddenly realized that wasn't me and that wasn't my authentic self, and I'm recently coming back to that, which feels really good.
Yeah,
that actually feeds into our next question a little bit, because I suppose you were chasing trends then. On the next question is, are there any current trends in illustration that you've noticed, and there are any that you like to look into?
Yeah, I think like artivism that's massively come up. So like being active like throughout our art and being able to speak about important conversations through illustrations to make it more approachable for people. I think that's really important, and I think that's like where a lot of conversations can start as well, because it seems more approachable and maybe not as scary to people to have that conversation. So yeah, I think like starting to open up about things that maybe I wouldn't previously because of what I've seen. So like one of a few people that I follow and are now my like people that I find inspire me, they speak about things that I would previously may have seen as like too personal, but now I know that it's such a great way to like express yourself and show who you are and have an honest conversation with your followers and people around you. So yeah, I think like I'm definitely falling into that and starting to do that, and I find it a great way to like express myself.
I think it's really important to talk about things that are a bit uncomfortable as well, because I think we always think like it's always just us going through something, or you feel like very alone when you go through like a mental health issue or something else going on in your life. And like whether it's art or music or like whatever, well, sorry, music is art, but whatever it is, I feel like it gives you that sense of community that does make you feel better about a certain issue, because you feel like there are people supporting you with it.
Yeah, I'm going to use my favourite sentence ever. As a trans woman, there's like so much, you need that sense of community, and I think anybody who's a part of an oppressed minority or an oppressed group needs the sense of community, and they need something to funnel all the hate and sympathy and whatever you get into it. And creativity is the perfect way to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's something that I've learned like within the last few months from like people that I've met on Instagram, which has been like a complete godsend for me. Like the community that I have started to like create is so beautiful. And I think if I didn't have this platform, like I would hope that I'd still learn what I've learned today. But like the people who have opened up to me and told me their stories and have made me understand like, you know, different people's lives and different people's struggles, it's so beautiful, and it inspires you in a completely different way to what maybe like an orange would or something, you know.
So on to the next question. I think we've already sort of touched on this, but are there any other styles that you're thinking of like venturing into, or other styles that you like but you feel like you can't venture into?
Oh, that is a good question.
I'm going to add a little twist to the question. Any other mediums
go
as
on.
well? So not just illustration, maybe like collage.
Yeah, so I mean, I do like, I crochet. So I do crochet quite a lot. I've made like a cardigan and bits like that. And like, so recently I've had tendonitis in my wrist and it's come up quite a lot. And what I have to do then is take a step away from drawing, which is really difficult because, like I said, it took me such a long time to find this passion that I never thought I'd have. And having to take a step back, like it has made me have to look into different things. And yeah, I think like having more like feasible things like to hold in your hand. So like a lot of my art right now is digital. So I think right now like I'm starting to go more down the traditional side of things and starting to try like pencils and paint and stuff like that, which has been really fun. And it's been really nice to kind of actually have it physically there rather than just like drawing on the screen.
Well, that sort of touches on a question I was gonna ask, but seeing as you brought it up, I'll ask, what software do you actually use to create your drawings, or like what do you use to make them?
So I use an iPad and an Apple Pencil, and I use Procreate, which is like the best system I've ever used. I did like start my digital on a laptop, and I was using like Illustrator and Photoshop, which are really good systems. But I found it like with my ADHD as well, I find it a lot easier to be able to visualize, like I was saying earlier. So like, and being able to see it as I draw it. So like, if you're doing it on Illustrator, for example, you've got to watch the screen, but you can't like watch what you're drawing. You've got to watch the screen and then draw at the same time, which like my coordination was like, no, that was so difficult. Yeah. So the iPad has been like a game changer for me, and that's what I use now.
Do you think you prefer drawing digitally or drawing physically, like with a pencil?
Digitally, definitely, because you can adapt it a lot more. Like it's easier to erase and go back.
Digitally as well, you can add little twists and you give yourself challenges, like not being able to see the color palette and what have you.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And yeah, like I really benefit from, like there was one key tip that like stuck out and I've always remembered it, is that like when you're drawing, never erase your previous stroke. So if you've made a mistake, for example, and you erase that, there's more of a chance that you're going to make that same mistake again because you've gotten rid of it. Whereas if you've drawn it and then you try drawing it again, you can use your mistake as a reference to then make it better, which I really benefit from. Like on digital, you use different layers. So like you can draw something and then just like turn the opacity down, go on a different layer and then work on that. So you kind of do in passes, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, Bob Ross said that there are no mistakes. So
we love Bob Ross. We stand with Bob Ross.
But I was gonna say about the like mistake thing. I feel like that about like aging. Like I feel like, you know, like we get like lines and marks and stuff, and I feel like it's like not mistakes, but like it's a process of you aging, so you shouldn't erase it, you know, because it's just like part of the experience.
Yeah, and I think generally in life, like you need something to reference to, you need something to look back to see, like also for like an example for how you've grown. But like if you haven't got something to look back and compare to, like you're never going to know what progress you've made.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, one last thing, and then I will let you speak at me. I was just gonna say, I was talking about
This is going to happen every week, isn't it?
I was talking about coming of age movies the other week, because I feel like coming of age movies really like idealize like the ages of like 16 to 18, and that's like the best years of your life. And then when you get to like 21, like past into your 20s, you're like, oh my god, I'm so old, like there's nothing to look forward to. But I think like you learn so much in your teens, and like you make so many mistakes. I actually feel like a lot happier now than I was in my teens, just because I feel like you've had like more experience.
Yeah, I feel the same. Imi pulled a face though then.
I only feel happier now because like I've come out, so I feel like that's my main takeaway. I was like, my face was going, yeah, I feel happier, and then going, obviously, you stupid bitch.
I love that.
Anyway, go on, Emmy.
Right.
Move on to the next question.
Our next question. You mentioned before the podcast that you even started recording that you're interested in tracing. If you just want to tell us a bit about that, say what it is and everything.
Yeah, so the conversation I think is really important right now. Like, as we are in an age where everything is quite digital based now, like Instagram plays a big part in all of our businesses, and I think the conversation came up quite a lot recently because there's a lot of artists now on Instagram that do trace. And it's quite clear to see, like, as an artist, it's very easy for us to pick up when that is like being applied to people's artworks, because some particular features won't be in place, some details won't be there, and it's very clear to see. Like, I've tried to educate myself like massively on this subject so I don't hurt anyone's feelings, because tracing is a learning process. Like, I don't know if either of you will remember, but like in art class, you'd get handed like tracing paper, and that's like how you'd learn to draw. But I think it's important to be able to
Differentiate.
Yes, that's it. Between tracing and maybe an illustrator or an artist who lives off of the money that they make from commissions and art that they create. I think that like you can trace, absolutely, and as long as you're tracing and you're using that traced image to build up your style on top of that trace, like that's great, because then you're showing your style and you're building it up, and that's a learning process. But I think like if you're selling that, and if someone comes to you and commissions you for tracing, I think that can become quite devaluing for illustrators or artists out there who's like grafting to get money or like clients. So yeah, I just think it's great as a learning process. It's really important to be able to kind of take that when you need it, but I don't think it's the best way to like sell to clients.
Yeah.
Would you say that there's a fine line between tracing and plagiarism?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think there's a lot of things where like people, for example, use like people's Instagram images. Like that happened, I think last year, someone like a really, really big account used a person's image and then like sold on their like prints, and that was definitely plagiarism. Like, you cannot do that, especially without asking for permission. And when you're like directly tracing as well, like it is so easy to add some touches of your own style. Like, it's so easy, like change someone's color of their hair, or like add some accessories, or change what they're wearing to what you'd like to wear. Like, it is very easy to do. It's not a hard quest. So yeah, I definitely think there is a very, very fine line, but it depends on the reference image that you use at that time.
Have you do you use tracing at all in your work, or is yours all just you?
I used it as a learning process, absolutely, but then I would never ever sell it. Like that is never something that I would do. And if ever I trace at this time, at like the position that I'm in right now, it would only be if like I couldn't get a position right of a hand, for example, or if like I got to a point where like I can't get someone's perspective right. And once I've got that traced bit as well, what I do then is like I said earlier, I do it in passes. So I'll take that trace bit and then I'll build up on it and add my own touches. I would never be able to like bring that trace bit into my artwork and just leave it how it is, because that's just not personally something that I'd be able to do within my art.
Yeah, and as you said, like it's so easy to do. Like if you think about like collage artists, like that's all like images from pop culture, like images from newspapers, and like they didn't make that specific image, but it's like the way they put it together, the way they construct it, the images that they choose that reflect them. Like it's not that hard to do, really.
No, exactly. And I think it can be like quite hard, especially like I said, I think it's going to get to a point where it's going to be quite easy for people to do things like these and like sell stuff like that. But I think we need to remember like the talent that lies within some illustrators and some artists and some creatives as well, that like that's original. There's so much work that goes to into people's art, like the initial sketch, the coloring, like the lining, like there's hours and hours of time that goes into people's work. And then if you see something like that doing so well in a community that you're in, it can be really deflating as an artist to see.
I think as well, with regards to like pricing of images, like people often say they get like complaints for like, you know, selling a print for like, I don't know, 30 quid or whatever. But the reason is because like that is like hours of your life you would poured your heart and soul into it. It's
so
like,
right.
like people need to pay you for your time and your worth. Like even though it is partially related to skill, it's also related to the fact that you have given like all your energy into that work, and like that energy should be rewarded. Like you need that energy back.
Yeah, you're so right. Absolutely.
The energy companies do not take exposure for payment, because I've tried that.
No. Yeah. I love that. I need to reuse that.
Right, so what are the main themes, would you say, in your work? And again, I think we've touched on it a bit, but if you could define, say, like 3 to 5 themes, what would you say they were?
Positivity, definitely. Maybe like mental health as an umbrella term. Like I think that's a massive part of my life, like from childhood, from my parents. Like it's been something that has taught me a lot about my life and about my particular abilities to deal with things. And like I said, this is something that like I'm trying to put into my work now and in the future a lot more. Yeah, I think the conversation needs to be a lot wider with mental health and mental illnesses, and the stigma really needs to stop. I think we should be able to speak about our mental health and mental illnesses just as much as we can speak about our physical health and our physical illnesses.
Yeah. Do you think, if you don't mind me asking, feel free not to answer, but if you have had any kind of mental health things in the past, do you feel like drawing and illustrating has helped you at all?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's just an escape. Like it's so the beauty of being able just to make up a world, like to be able just to like
escape.
Take yourself, yeah, exactly, take yourself anywhere, and like you can create that anywhere, which is absolutely amazing. Like I love everything mystic, like I love like fairies and mushrooms. Like
oh my god, I follow so many mushroom pages on Instagram.
Oh my god, I love mushrooms.
Like mushroom dresses, mushroom prints.
Yeah,
if I could decorate my whole room as a giant mushroom, I would.
That would be so good. That's like a good idea.
Actually, you just reminded me that your work actually has a sort of cottagecore aesthetic and like some aspects of it as well, I think.
I love that. Thank you. Like I said, I love everything magical and calming and like positive. That's what I love. So I absolutely love that. That's a massive compliment. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You tend to draw a lot of people within your work. Are they based on real people? Are they people you've made up? Are they you? Or...
So they're just like references that I usually take from Pinterest. Like, I'll usually like consolidate a lot of different references, and then I'll kind of like I said, I like to like build up on things and then add particular things that I like the characters to have. But I'm really, really working hard on inclusifying the people that I draw now and in the future as well. I think it's really important to make sure that in our art, we're representing a massive group of people, especially marginalized groups, because like I said earlier, like creative spaces are where like these conversations start. And I think it's so important to put this in our, like, in our, it doesn't even have to be in our style. Like I was thinking about this earlier, and like I've looked through art quite a lot, and I feel like some people, the only time that I see these like marginalized groups like represented in art, it seems to be like particular people's style, like that's the only thing that they draw. But I think it's important to bring it into your style and just like make it part of that. Like it's so important. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now, but usually it's from like Pinterest. I'll like take references and then try and like mush them together.
Do you ever have like a muse in particular, like a friend or something?
No, not really. It's usually just like random people, to be honest.
I've always had like, because I used to do a lot of photography, and I mean, I just always used like my best friend at the time, just because it was like convenient. Like I could ask her to do anything, and like we were comfortable with each other. But like I'd always have like one muse that just all of my pictures would be of. And when I was younger, when I was like, I think 16, and I was doing photography for the first time, I was photographing my friend, and her mum, she was so sweet. She was like, oh, I really want to buy the photos off you. So we have like they bought them off me. And then I went to her house one time, and there were just all these pictures of my friend's face, like all around the living room. It was like a little shrine.
No, funnily enough, you say that. My partner's has that as well at his parents. Like there's a little shrine of him. It's so sweet. I love it. But I do also, oh, sorry, you go.
No, go on. I wasn't going to say anything interesting.
I do use myself as a reference sometimes. Like the other day, I was just, I'm working on a project at the moment with a charity called Flow Haven based in Nigeria, and they're fighting like period poverty, which really needs to happen. And I was just like to my partner, I was just like, I'm going to go to the toilet and take some reference images. Like, don't judge me. It's just like, sometimes you need to do these things. You need to get like, because there's no way you're going to find online like person sat on toilet, you know?
Well, I literally did like a picture of my friend like that, because I was doing like, I can't remember what the theme was. It was something like sexuality, and I can't remember. I was doing something about like reclaiming female sexuality and it not being like men objectifying women. So I'd like photograph her in like unconventional positions. So I had her like photographed on the loo, like just sitting on the loo, like looking down. It's the weirdest picture I've ever taken. But I love art like that though. I love stuff that like pushes boundaries and like is a bit grotesque. Oh, it's still my question. Sorry. Right. So I was wondering, like, you draw mostly women in your work. Is there like a reason for that, or is it just sort of coincidence?
No, I love women. Like I love the strength that we hold, and I love well, let's say women and marginalized genders as well. Like there's an umbrella term there. Like there's a lot of people that may, you know, like identify as women, or not, non-binary people as well. But I just love the strength that we hold within us. And yeah, like I just love women. I think they're amazing, and I think they're so strong.
I agree. I'm often quite like resentful that I turned out like straight, because I genuinely I just adore women, like all my friends are girls, and I just think all women are beautiful, genuinely. I often like walk down the street and I'll just look at people and I'll be like, I just want to run up to them and tell them that they're beautiful and strong. Yes,
absolutely.
If you've watched any of our TikTok content, we've done stuff about surrealism, which is my favourite art movement. Do you have a particular favourite art movement?
No, not particularly. I don't think so. That's not something that I've ever really thought about, to be honest. Naughty of me.
Well, it's just like whatever style inspires you, isn't it? Like that technically every style of art is like a movement. Like even modern art, like there's probably loads of trends and things within modern art. It's like a movement. I guess it just depends what you actually define as a movement.
I guess like recently, like the big move, there's a Sarah movement that has been like really like I know that's particularly like I don't know what kind of movement that would be called, but I've seen a lot of it like portrayed within art massively, like, which has been really comforting to see. And I think it's just been like very eye-opening for me, and for what a lot of women have had to experience throughout their life. And I think that's what's like made me comfortable within the fact that that's definitely like that artivism again, like being active within the art. I think that's so important to my style, and that's really something that I'm gonna like carry out throughout my like future with drawing.
How do you think being a woman affects like your position in the arts industry, or have you faced any sort of discrimination or anything really to do with being a woman and being an artist, or has it been quite happy?
I think it's been actually a really good process so far, to be honest. Like, I haven't particularly received any like discrimination of being a woman like in this art community, because I think this community that I found myself in is so comforting, and it includes so many different people. Like, there's a lot of non-binary people that are in the community that I am within. So I think like I found myself in a group of people that like completely uplift each other, which is absolutely lovely. Considering I work in a corporate company as well, like the corporate company I work for, the CEO is a woman, my manager's a woman, like and yeah, so I've been really, really fortunate within the fact that I haven't faced that yet. But there definitely have been times within other jobs that I've worked in, like hospitality and stuff like that, where discrimination has taken place, and like sexual abuse and stuff like that has definitely been prominent. But within the artist world, it hasn't, which has been lovely.
Like with online communities, when you find the right one, it is all like really like supportive and lovely and like fluffy, and like I've never had any bad experiences online. But I think that like the main problem is probably like out in the real world, like in like kind of the galleries, and it's not so much overt discrimination as it is like kind of subtle, like not displaying enough women artists in galleries, like not giving them a platform like in the sort of prestigious art world and that sort of thing. So I think probably until you sort of enter the prestigious art world, like with stuff, maybe it's not as prominent, and hopefully like online it will stay all like lovely, and because it's so nice to have that support and have people you can talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. That space where like we can speak to each other and relate to each other and allow others to speak as well. It's so important. But I mean, I've only been in the art world for like 3-4 years, so there's a lot more for me to experience yet. So
yeah. Well, we look forward to seeing all of your work and becoming famous. I bet one day you'll be a famous artist and we'll be like, oh my God, yeah, we did a podcast with her.
Fingers crossed.
Which art pieces of yours are your favourite? Is there a reason for it?
Yeah, so do you know what? My most recent one, which is probably the most simplest of like all of my art that I've ever done, and it's literally a flower that has a sad face, and it says it says something along the lines that like, if you're not okay today or tomorrow, that's okay. And like, I don't know, when I was drawing that, I feel like I was kind of speaking to myself, like especially throughout this lockdown. Like, there's been so much, like I said, so much pressure internally and externally to be a particular mood or to be a particular amount of productive. And like, I just got to a point where I was like, I can't do this to myself anymore. Like, I can't put so much pressure on myself to like feel a particular way or be doing particular things within a certain amount of time. Like, it's just not feasible. So yeah, I think that piece, because I find so much comfort in it, and I know a lot of other people did as well.
I think especially at the moment, it's nice to have an outlet to be able to kind of express like frustration and kind of feeling down, and also like kind of reveling and feeling down. Not reveling, that's probably the wrong word, but like sort of accepting that like if you feel sad, it's all right, like you'll get up tomorrow, it's a day, and it'll be okay. So what do you have in store for the future in terms of your artwork? So upcoming competitions, any giveaways, challenges, or things you're thinking of drawing?
Oh yeah, like I said, I'm really working on inclusifying like my characters I draw. Like, I really want to start drawing like disabled people and more like BIPOC as well, and non-binary people as well. Like, I really want to touch into that and be able to like adapt my style to be able to draw people. But also like just working on my products. Like, I've currently done like prints and stickers, but I want to go more down like textiles and doing like t-shirts maybe, or something more niche than that. Like, I don't know. But also I've started a zine as well. So with my friend, I've got like
The soft
approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like a space where we can tackle tough conversations, but in a comfortable space where both like the people who want to learn and the people who want to teach like are happy in that situation, rather than like I feel like a lot of marginalized groups right now are having to explain themselves and use a lot of energy to teach privileged people, which I think is so wrong and so like energy zapping. Like I just don't, it's so difficult to be able to find that middle ground where someone can learn and someone can educate. So we're really trying hard to make a space where we can do that in a creative way and in an understanding and comfortable space.
I think, have you heard of Florence Given?
Yeah.
Have you read her book?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, just because I was going to say a lot of what you were talking about wanting to sort of diversify your illustrations and everything. She was talking about like very much similar themes in her book, because she's, I think, an illustrator as well. And she was saying she used to draw a lot of sort of like white, thin female women. And then she sort of realized that, you know, she wanted to be like more inclusive and incorporate like, body types and like different ethnicities and all that. But yeah, no, you just reminded me of her when you were saying that.
Yeah, it's such an important step to take, I think. And I think like the subject we're going to go into, but I think it's something that you're very much influenced by like the people around you and how their success is happening and where it's coming from. And I think you fall into this place of like, if they're doing it so well and they're getting so much engagement, surely if I do it, like I'm going to get that same response. But I think that really you lose your authentic self that way. So yeah, that's what like I'm trying to do, and with the soft approach hopefully we'll be able.
What you're saying there is interesting, because that can be done on like a creative level and on a personal level. Like you see somebody who's like your age and is maybe doing something better. For some marginalized people, they might see somebody who's in their same group and is just doing a lot better, and all of a sudden the bad feeling comes down. So it's interesting that you're saying stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's so, and like that comparison that takes place, like it's just like, you know, with the same people, we're doing the same thing, but like why is that one person doing a lot better than me? And it's just like you never know what may happen in the future. And just because they're like getting a little bit more engagement or getting a little bit more like, I don't know, like attraction, that does not mean that you're any less. Like you're still beautiful, like inside and out. And I think that's so important to remember, and something that has switched in my brain within the last few weeks.
In our next segment, our artist, Sasha, offers up a woman that inspired their art and puts them into our Hall of Fame. So, who have you picked to go into the Women's Workshop Hall of Fame?
So it's B Illustrates, who is a non-binary queer illustrator. They are absolutely amazing. Their initial post that like dragged me towards their page was actually about mental health, and it said like normalize speaking about mental health. And so much of their feed I just relate to so strongly, and I feel like it's such, like I was saying earlier, it's such a comfortable space to be able to have such amazing conversations, but also like the art is so strong. Like when you look at it, you feel so comforted, and that's something that I really inspired to create. And I just think that they do it in such an incredible way. So yeah, I think they're amazing, and I'm so glad that I came across their page.
Is there anyone else who inspires your art? I know you mentioned a few others before. Do you want to speak about them?
Yeah, there's so many. So I've also got a friend who I was saying that a lot of them are people that I know. Like I feel like that's been like really like inspire changing. Is that a thing?
It can be a thing. We can make it a thing.
That can be a thing.
It's now a thing.
So yeah, I think like my friend Tala, I've recently met online. We met like in lockdown, and like learning about where she's come from. So like she's like from she's been to like Syria, and she's been to like Barcelona, lived in a lot of different places, and being able to speak to someone where like has experienced a lot of different things than obviously that I have, has been really eye-opening for me and really inspiring as well. Like I think it's so important to learn about these things and understand like our different types of privileges and how they like feed within our life and our communities. And yeah, India Moore is amazing. Like, they're incredible. I don't know if you've watched Pose.
Of course, I've watched Pose.
No,
It's part of the rules of being trans. You have to watch Pose.
Pose is Ella. You have to watch Pose.
What is it?
So Pose is about Afro-American drag culture and ballroom culture, and about how trans women and marginalized people started that sort of movement, and basically it's about their lives, and it's also got a lot to say about sex work and how dangerous but how it can be, but also how liberating it can be for the person involved in it.
Oh, okay. I feel so uncultured for not having watched that. Like, that sounds well up my street.
It's absolutely amazing. A lot of tears. Tears.
Why are you watching that?
I'm not very good.
Watching that as well. You may as well add Paris is Burning to your list, because Paris is Burning is Pose but as a documentary, so it's actually real people, and it broke me in several places when I was watching it, because there's this one.
What is it?
It's a documentary about the Afro-American drag culture,
right?
And there's this one storyline about a trans girl, and everything seems to be going well. She's talking about her life and how much she wants, and like how everything's going to be positive once her surgery happens, once this happens. And then, I'm not going to ruin it, but all of a sudden it just goes ooh, and I was just sat on my sofa crying.
See, I cried so much through Pose. Like, I was a mess.
I'm not very good with stuff like that, because I literally will cry at everything. Like, I cry at every single episode of Doctor Who. Like, I cry at Disney movies. I cry at
I did cry at a Disney movie the other day. I hold my hands up. I did it. The new one. No, right. It's like Raya and the yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's out. I cried. It was just so
sorted. I'm excited. I actually genuinely love Disney movies. Like, I know I'm a grown-up, but I just love them. Like, I do appreciate problematic themes and stuff in Disney movies, which we won't get into because that's a whole other topic for another day. But like, I do just love them. They're just so comforting.
I'm not having this I'm an adult stuff. I had this argument with somebody in uni. I was watching The Lion King and they were like, The Lion King, Disney's for kids. And I was like, cats for horses, but you still fucking do it.
That's amazing.
I don't understand how anyone can not like The Lion King. Like, my boyfriend, Martin, he thinks The Lion King is overrated. I'm like, have you seen the scene where Mufasa dies? And also, just a quick fun fact I found out the other day, the scene where Scar is in his cave, like with the little skull, it's Mufasa's skull.
Whoa.
So I found this out because if you look up what a lion skull looks like, it looks exactly like what he's holding, and no other animals in the wild eat lions apart from other lions.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, just to bring the mood down a bit.
Have you watched any Studio Ghibli movies?
I've got a Totoro tattoo on my ankle. I love all of them. I've seen them.
I've got no face on my arm.
I love them all so much. Like, I was so sad when Hayao Miyazaki like retired. Although I don't know if he has retired. He keeps saying he's gonna retire and then he doesn't.
I think he's doing a couple things. But have you seen like the Art of books?
No.
I've seen them in charity shops and I've gone, I should pick that up and just walk past it.
Hang on.
Oh my god, where did you get that?
You can just get them online.
Oh, oh my god, it's so beautiful.
So pretty, isn't it?
While we're on the subject of Studio Ghibli films, I have a controversial opinion.
Oh no.
My favourite Ghibli film is Princess Kagawa.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, the thing is, I appreciate the artistic value of it. I think it's beautifully drawn, but I didn't really enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the other films, if I'm 100% honest. It's very clever.
The story is like very based on a mythology story as well. Like I like love their religion. It's like Shintoism, and like a lot of their like mythology stories is like Studio Ghibli is influenced by those stories, but yeah, that's like one of the ones that is like very, very based on it. And yeah, I agree with you, Amy. It's a great film.
I think I'm very basic. Like my favorite, well, it's a toss-up between Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle, because Spirited Away,
of course.
yeah, Spirited Away was the first one I ever watched, and I just fell in love with it. It's just so like beautifully written, and Howl, like, I'm sorry, but like Howl, like,
Yeah,
honestly, I have never been so in love with a cartoon character. He's so beautiful.
Yeah, my favorite's Wind Rises. I love that one.
Really? That's, oh my god. See, I have the controversial opinion here, because I did like Princess Kaguya, but I didn't think it was the best. And The Wind Rises, I don't know. I wasn't 100% won over by it. I don't really like that, like, I found it a little bit slow.
Yeah, see, I really like that.
Yeah,
But
I quite like that as well.
the one thing I
Yeah.
didn't like about it was, like, you know how in Studio Ghibli movies there's never any reference to like kissing or like sex?
Oh
or anything
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Wind Rises, there's that scene, and I remember watching it and being like, I was still like 20 when I watched this, and I watched it, and I was like, oh my god, like that's a sexual
What am I doing?
information.
I also really like, is it When Marnie Came?
When Marnie
Yes.
When Marnie was here.
That's
Oh,
so good.
that is like
And
a
Up on
lesbian
Poppy
couple.
Hill, that's a good one.
Oh my goodness, you've actually listed all the ones of my least favorite ones. I feel so bad. My favorites would have to be Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle. I really like the cutesy ones like Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yeah, that's super cute.
What other ones? Oh, Laputa, Castle in the Sky.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Oh, and a really underrated one is it Nausicaa?
Oh, the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is really
that
good.
one. It's like
Yeah.
so beautiful, and oh yeah, I loved it. But I could just honestly binge all the Studio Ghibli movies in one sitting. Like they're just so amazing.
So calming. So calming.
I really want to go to Japan to the Studio Ghibli Museum.
Yeah, it's a massive dream of mine. Like just to go to Japan, like in this time as well. Could you imagine? Oh, it'd just be so beautiful.
They're meant to do a Studio Ghibli theme park. They said 2020, which was like 4 years ago. They said
I
2020, and
saw
then they keep
this.
owning it. So I'm like, are they actually building it, or is it just like a promotion ploy? Because I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
Imagine a no-face haunted house.
Oh, that would be amazing.
That would be so.
If No Face gave you a coin, would you accept it?
I think I would.
Yeah, maybe one. No, actually, yeah, no.
Little one.
I think he's such a good like metaphor though. Like I love all the metaphors he puts into it, like about like greed and gluttony and wealth, but there's so much like darkness. If you peel back all the layers of all the films, there's so like, really deep dark themes in them.
Like Grave of the Fireflies, that's a deep one.
I've never watched it because my friend told me it was devastating and hard.
It is.
I just didn't.
It is heartbreaking.
Same reason. So I watched, it's not Ghibli, but The Brave Little Toaster and The Iron Giant, and they both fucking broke me.
The Iron Giant.
What's that? What's the one about the toaster? That
The Brave
sounds
Little
so
Toaster.
cool.
So a family move house and they leave all their appliances behind, and the appliances end up getting like clinically depressed and travel across America to move back in with the family. And there's a horrific scene.
My heart.
There's a horrific scene in a junkyard, and it's these the cars getting picked up by a crane, and because they're like anthropomorphized, it's just the cars getting murdered, and it scarred the living shit out of me. So I can't watch stuff that's too emotional. Same with the Iron Giant. The Iron Giant fucking broke me.
That was devastating. But to be fair, it did have quite a happy ending, like ish.
Yeah.
Sort of.
But The Brave Little Toaster, one, great name. I love that name. And
I
two,
love that.
it reminds me of this really sad children's story that my mum used to read me when I was younger. And it's such a sad story. It was about this girl who had all these toys that she never played with. And her mum was like, you need to give them away to like the charity down the road. And she didn't give any of them away. So in the middle of the night, they all got up and like left her. And like they all marched down to like the children's hospital, which I get like what the moral was, but then I got really scared. I was like, what if I'm not giving my toys enough attention? And
Are they gonna leave?
I slept in fear every night, thinking they're gonna wake up. Like, I'm gonna wake up and they're not gonna be here.
When I was a kid, I used to light them up so if they moved, I'd notice.
Yeah, I always used to try and like catch them moving.
Same. I used to have loads of those little like beanie beanie babies. I think they were called beanie
Oh
babies.
yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
I used to like strap them in a little harness out of like a Tesco bag, and then I used to like throw them out the window, and they used to parachute to safety.
Those
That's
beanie,
honestly a great idea.
those beanie babies could be worth shitloads now, you know.
People
Yeah.
like some people have like thousands of like all in like perfectly stored containers, but they sell,
Seriously, wow.
yeah, they sell for loads on like eBay and stuff. Like I can imagine people having some like
There's one called Halo the Bear, which is worth $7.5 grand.
but like what do you do with it? If
What?
you spend £7 grand on a
Yeah.
bear and like it's in mint condition, so you're probably going to keep it in a tiny little plastic container. What joy.
I couldn't do with that. If it's a toy, you've got to play with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Same
Yeah.
with comic books. If you've got to read a book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Right, anyway, I think we
Hang
should move on to our
No.
go on.
There will be a reel going up on Instagram full of stuff that Sasha's mentioned, the artists that went into the Hall of Fame, and bits of Ghibli stuff as well. So keep an eye out for that on Insta.
So moving on to the big question of the evening. So Sasha, you've chosen to talk about the pressure of Instagram and how it can affect the quality and inclusivity of art. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah.
So do you just want to tell us a little bit about it, like how you became interested in it?
Yeah, so I think like it was a conversation that I started having within the community that I spoke about earlier. And I think through lockdown, like having the amount of time to be able to like assess like what you're putting out to the world and how people receive it and how they engage with it was like a massive thing that I began to do. And when I was like kind of turning this work out and maybe not receiving the engagement that I'd like or previously kind of expected or had, it obviously I got really upset about it and it got me down and it got me thinking about how unimportant that can be sometimes. Like we think it's really important because I think, like I was saying earlier, a lot of businesses now are based on social media for that exposure. I think we started off for the exposure. I was trying to kind of think about it, but like the best way that I could explain like to my friend what I was thinking is like Instagram's kind of like a funnel. So like we start at the top and we go into our funnel like, you know, our most authentic self. Like I was saying, like I used to post like just like little drawings of my days, and then as I started to learn what like people were doing so well and how they were doing so well, I think like I just subconsciously started to tailor my style to match that and to kind of like, I mean, I don't know, maybe try and get the same engagement or try and get the same like audience, I suppose. And yeah, I think that's like how you end up like tailoring yourself and what you create. And like I was having a conversation with my friends before this, and like one thing that like really stuck out to me is that like I said like we'd lessen our quality for the quantity as well. So you feel like you have to create so much, like churn all this work out, and it's like that's impossible. Like the content that us creatives make takes hours. It takes so much time for you to create, and once it's out there, like anything can happen with it, you know, like it's just there. That's all it is. It's just there. And yeah, I think that's one thing that I just realized throughout these last weeks. And I was just like, do you know what? I want to go back to the top of that funnel. I want to go back to where I was when I started this process. And I just want to be me again. Like, I want to make the art for me again. Like, as much as I love my audience seeing it, I love my audience. I'm so grateful for the audience that I've got. But like, at the end of the day, the art is for me. Like, it is what I want to show and what I want to put out into the world.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about quality and quantity, because lots of artists do fall into a habit of ending it with dead profiles because they don't give out as much. Like one of my favorite YouTubers makes a video every like month, and they've been hemorrhaging subscribers because of it, but the videos are always insane quality because they're so good. So there's finding the happy middle ground for artists and creatives. So you need to have the best quality but still keep people interested in you.
Yeah. Well, there's this podcast I listen to. It's not really art related. It's about Celtic myths and legends. But she's called Sian Powell. I'll do a shout out to her if anyone's listening.
Yeah.
But she only does one like literally once every 2 months or something because she works full time and she's really busy. But everyone always listens to them because they're such good podcasts. Like they're so informative and they're so interesting to listen to. And I think when you do stay authentic to yourself, like as much as you can, it does pay off because I think people can tell when something's authentic and they enjoy it more because it's an expression of you.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. And I think like as soon as you start like tapping back into that as well, you'll create your best work anyway because you'll fall in love with it, like, and you'll enjoy your process, like, and instead of like having to keep up with what everyone else is doing, like I definitely felt like I was falling into that. Like I was watching what everyone else was doing before I would start creating my new post. I really don't like that. Like personally, for my process, I just don't think that's the best way to go because I can't take too much pressure. I can't do that. Like I can't churn out loads of work that I first of all don't relate to, and second of all don't enjoy drawing. Like that's just not why I'm doing this. I'm drawing because I love it. So I want to draw things that I love and that are important.
You've got a second side to the trend tracing as well, because if you chase a trend and then it suddenly stops, and then there's a double-edged sword. It's like maybe it's not the trend, maybe it's me, and that you end up questioning yourself, and it's
absolutely. And you can fall into a niche that you maybe don't relate to, like I did. Like I fell into drawing white, pretty, skinny woman, and like I'm not interested in that personally. Like that's not something that I like to see. I like to see different body types and like people of color and trans women and trans men. Like I love seeing that. I love like inclusifying my feed, and like definitely something to touch on here is like making sure your feed is so inclusive as well, because it just inspires you in so many different ways than it would otherwise. Like I think once you create that community, you're only bound to like inclusify your artwork as well, which widens it into like such a big world, which is so beautiful and important. So I think that's another important thing that like if ever like any artist was to listen to this, like I would definitely suggest to do. And it's something that I've done over the last few months. Like I said, I'm really early on in my journey and I will acknowledge that. Like there was a couple posts that I done and I would look back at and I'd be like, oh, like I wish I'd done this different, or I wish I'd done that different. But like one thing that I say is like my art has to grow with me. Like there is no way that my art can preempt my growth before I grow, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think how you talk about art and sort of trying to fit in with trends and stuff is very much how I view like meeting new people. So that doesn't make sense first, but basically I feel like when I meet new people, I feel like you're always trying really hard to sort of like be liked and like fit in, and like you might like talk more than you usually do, you might be quieter than you normally are, but I think just like accepting that like you're okay how you are, like you don't have to be the loudest person in the room, you don't have to be the quietest person in the room, like just do what you want to do. And I think people generally gravitate towards you more when you do just sort of stick to what you're doing, because they can tell that you're comfortable with yourself, you're comfortable with what you're doing, and at the end of the day it's no one else's fucking business. So
yeah, that's so right. Absolutely.
Own your flaws, because they're your flaws, they're part of you, and you need to be proud of yourself.
100%. Like that is one. I think that's another thing that like really switched. Like I there's like a person in my life that's recently entered it, and they've experienced a lot of things. Like they lived in like the UAE, and they've had like a divorce and things like that. And like the way that they would speak about things was so passionate, and like even if it was something that maybe half of the room wouldn't agree with, like they just wouldn't give a shit. Like they just would not care. They would own it. And I did say to them one day, I was just like, what would you say to a woman my age? Like what is the one thing that you'd tell me or advice that you'd give me to take throughout my life? And they said, even if something you said was wrong or something you said was right, just fucking own it, because then like you're owning it, you're acknowledging it. Like if it's wrong and you look back at it and you're like, shit, that was wrong, like at least you're owning it, then you're not denying it. And if it's right and you own it, like that's great, you're owning it. Like you've got the confidence to believe in yourself and know that what you said was right. So I think that's really important that you said that, Amy, that you just got to own it.
Yeah, I think we are sort of programmed to feel quite a lot of guilt. Like, I've always felt loads of guilt growing up. You know, if like I said like I was bitchy when I was younger, maybe, or I said something that like I regret saying, and I'd always say, like, even now, like I'll think about it and be like, oh my god, like what a horrible little person I was. But, you know, like you'll think of certain things and you'll just beat yourself up for it. But at the end of the day, like it's part of what sort of made you who you were. Like you recognize now that that was wrong. It's the same as sort of history. Like history informs us as to how we can be better and how we can improve and how we can be inclusive today.
Exactly. Like if we didn't have those things to reference to, we wouldn't be having the important conversations that are taking place now. Like we need those things to look back to and say, this is how we do it better. Like this is how we improve from that and grow from that. And I'm starting to learn how important that step is, like back in the past. Like I'm sure in about 10 years time, I'll probably be looking at this like, Sasha, you dick, like you could have done this. But like it's so important to have that moment in time to reference back to. And that a lot, like I said, with my art, like I'm so lucky to have that physical form to reference back to. Like I'm very lucky to have that, because I can know what headspace I was when I was in when I drew that, or like how I was feeling, or why I wanted to draw that particular aspect in that particular place. Like it's so nice to have that as a reference and then be like, well, this is where I want to be like in 3 weeks time or 4 weeks time. Like it's so nice to be able to have that, and I'm so appreciative of that.
I think unless anyone else has anything to say, should we move into our outro?
Yeah.
So firstly, could you just like summarize all your socials? Like where can people find you?
So on Instagram, it's Mystic Illustrations, and on Etsy, you can purchase some bits if you'd like to treat yourself. It's Mystic Illustrations as well. Currently, they're the only two socials that I'm on, but if there are any artists listening to this that ever want to contribute to a zine as well, The Soft Approach is currently on Instagram too, and we're going to be opening submissions soon.
Well, thank you so much for coming on this interview. It's lovely to speak to you about your work and Ghibli and a billion other tangents that we went on.
It was so much fun. I loved it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So let's just we'll just advertise us now. So you can find us on @thewomen's_workshop on Instagram. We also have a Twitter. What's our Twitter handle, Amy?
It's @womenswork_shop. You can also, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you've found it somewhere. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's also on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, you can watch it on YouTube. Ella, where can we find you on social media? Just you.
Right. You can find me at ellajasmine.samuel, I think. Pretty sure that's my handle. I also have an art Instagram, which is Ella Unusual, but I haven't used it in a while, so there might be some weird stuff on there. But anyway, also, I lastly just want to reiterate the ugly art competition that we've got going on. If anyone does want to enter, all you have to do is post the ugliest piece of art that you can make and tag me @thewomen's_workshop and Quirky Buns, who's co-hosting it with us. So that's QUIKYBUNS, Quirky Buns. And if you win, you will get a beautiful pair of ugly earrings. When I say ugly earrings, I mean they're beautiful, but like beautifully ugly creations.
And you can find me @ImmyMidi on Instagram and on Twitter, because Ella didn't let me get that in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Right, okay. Well, last thing. So the website launch, as we said at the beginning of the podcast, is on the 7th of April. So we'll have all of our artists up on there, linking out to all their Instagrams and Etsy shops. We'll also have some blogs, some research resources, and we'll be putting all of our podcasts on there as well. So we'll keep you updated. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you, Sasha, for joining us, and goodbye.
Goodbye.